well, since we got the very serious, important stuff out of the way.
Now we're going to talk about bullshit.
Yeah, we're going to lighten up. We're going to lighten the mood. Lighten up, Francis. And, all right, so I'm going to ask Jess about some of her favorite movies. But first, since this is my office recording studio, I'm going to ask Jess to go around the room and take as much time. This could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. But I want you to talk about every movie here, your personal experience with it, your feelings on it. You could start with Rounders, which I know you saw only recently.
Yeah, I saw that one recently. I remember you talking about it for years, and you'd be like, I don't want to watch this. I have this thing that I think a lot of people could relate to, where if someone's, oh, you got to see this movie, I'm like, man, fuck you, I'm never watching it now. So Rounders was one of those movies, and then I don't remember what made me actually watch it. Was I staying with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
You in Huntington. It was about like November of 2022, November, December, somewhere in that range. I was still in the apartment in Huntington at the time.
Yeah. It was a dark time for me. But anyway, it was really good. It was a great movie. Ed Norton is amazing. He's exactly that guy. Like, I've known that guy. I have seen that guy. I've been friends with that guy. I've sat next to that. It was spot on. It was perfect.
Right. Really great casting.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, all the way down the line, Malkovich, I mean, he's like the people joke about, but John Turturro in a smaller role. Everybody in the cast was good. Martin Landau, always great as the professor. Okay, so that was one that Jess liked. Now,
just a little plug for John Turturro, because
Yes.
he and I had the same acting teacher, Beverly Brum.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me that.
Bev
Brum. Yeah, Bev Brum, Red Rum.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dirty Harry.
You showed that film to me when I was 6 or 7, maybe 8. I don't know.
Not any of my finest moments forcing my sister to watch movies that she had no business watching.
To be fair, though, Dirty Harry was like a more approachable, acceptable film.
Right. It's an R-rated movie. It's wall-to-wall violence, but it's not. I mean, it could be disturbing, but it's the sort of movie that if somebody took their kid to, you wouldn't automatically think there's something wrong with this guy. You know, because it is an action movie. There's some bad language, and there's one scene in a nudie bar.
I don't even remember that scene.
But really, it's more of a straightforward, like an R-rated film.
It's a cop movie.
It's a cop movie, yeah.
And I feel like we went double time on the Do You Feel Lucky Punk, like 5 or 6 times the first watch through. Just
Yeah, there were certain.
No. It was. He has the. He's eating the hot dog.
Oh yeah, the hot dog.
And he says halt,
He
and
says
like
halt.
a piece of bun.
And some of the bun, like
mouth.
some of the bun flies out of his mouth. It's really, the movie is. I mean, I think it's a great movie just from a historical perspective. It's the first real R-rated action thriller of that type. It sort of set the standard for that kind of cop film. But there is like a freedom of movement in the movie. The film was not. That opening scene is shot in a studio lot, but the rest of the film was shot at various locations in and around San Francisco. And it's just, there's so many good things about that movie, from the performances to the climate at that time, that audiences of the day, when one character is introduced as he's a professor of constitutional law at Berkeley. Now you say that now, it means nothing. Doesn't mean anything. But in 1971, when you said that, a certain percentage of, probably went like that. And it was supposed to be somewhat humorous, the way this constitutional law professor at Berkeley just looks at Clint's police work and basically says, you fucked up here, you fucked up here, you fucked up here, you fucked up here. And then it's like, well, you got to get him on something. And it's like, well, you're lucky I'm not locking you up. But I've seen Dirty Harry many, many times. And I mean, my thoughts on the film as a whole haven't really changed over the years. Maybe how I would react to individual scenes. There are certain things that they wouldn't be able to get away with. There was talk, I mentioned this on another episode, there was actually talk more than 2 decades ago, they're going to do a reboot with Hugh Jackman. And Hugh is the only person at that time that maybe could have done it, but I'm glad that they did not. There are certain sleeping dogs let lie, and the Dirty Harry franchise, all 5 movies are good. The first one is the best, but there's interesting elements in the succeeding 4. to say that they're not as good is, not really that big of a criticism, because this is a great movie. This is a movie that could have been, Oscar nominated for a number of categories and didn't get any nominations. But Pulp Fiction?
Yes. I have seen this film.
You don't have any real...
It's very quotable.
Sure.
It relaunched Travolta's career.
Yes.
Pretty much.
It did. No, not pretty much. It absolutely did.
Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer are amazing. I love that scene.
This is a robbery!
Be cool, honey bunny.
I'll execute every single one of you motherfuckers!
Yeah, I don't know. The Christopher Walken scene it's Christopher Walken.
Yeah, it's the same line delivery that he does in True Romance, another Tarantino script. I haven't killed anyone since 1984.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like every woman of a certain age has been forced to hear some dude's opinion about Pulp Fiction.
And I should also point out that Jessica was very young when the film came out. See, sometimes
I was 11 years old.
Right. I'm not thinking of those things. So me watching it at age 20 with Dad, we saw it at the Comac Multiplex. It was the two of us. And it's different because this movie was teased. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, and every critic just raved about it. So we were expecting to see a great film, and the film was at least as good as what we expected, because it's still, even saying, oh, this is great, it doesn't necessarily prepare you for the kind of twisty mind fuck where the narrative and everything is told. It's like Citizen Kane, the story's told out of order, but not even in a conventional out of order. It's just randomly out of order because this story, that story, this story, We got a car and a body minus a head in a garage. All right, so by
Great
virtue...
soundtrack also.
Fantastic. For sure. Urge Overkill, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, classic. All right, so the Pulp Fiction didn't necessarily make the impression that I assumed that it had, by virtue of the fact that you are a lot younger than me. Okay, now we can talk about Blue Velvet, which is one of our favorite films. It's certainly in my top 10, and I think it's in Jessica's top 10.
It's in my top 10. It's one of those movies that I will ask if someone has seen, and then if they haven't seen it, I ask them if they like mindfuck movies.
Right. Usual Suspects in a totally different way. A mindfuck movie.
And if they have seen it and they like it, I'm like, okay.
We can vibe.
Yeah, like, this is good. If they have not seen it, I will ask them to watch it with me.
I have done this many times myself. It is that kind of movie.
I won't tell them anything other than it's a David Lynch movie.
Yeah.
And if they don't know from David Lynch, then fine. But I pretty much tell people, like, if you don't like this, then, like, it's over. And yeah, then I get to watch it. It's almost like watching it again for the first time, and it's so creepy on so many levels and so beautiful but terrible.
Yeah.
And just everything. What he does in the beginning of the film, you're watching it, you're like, this acting is terrible. Like, what is happening?
Right.
I don't understand. This is so cheesy. And then that in itself is the veneer that I can't really talk about.
There are so many different ways in which the film is brilliant, and I understood the first time I saw it when I was like 15 that some people will just not like it because it challenges you and it does things that most mainstream films don't do. And this is, again, another example of a movie that is not an independent film. This is made on the studio's dime. As A Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick, that feels like, well, there's no way a studio would fund this, but sometimes filmmakers manage to make crazy movies that challenge everything, that fuck shit up, and they do it on the studio's dime, get away with it, and get a ton of acclaim. And in the case of Blue Velvet, it's a shame that it didn't get more nominations. And Dennis Hopper got nominated for supporting actor for the wrong movie. He was nominated for Hoosiers, which, really good movie. He's okay in it, but the character Shooter that he plays in Hoosiers, compared to Frank Booth, don't you fucking look at me! It's not even in the same universe.
It's Daddy, you shithead! Where's my bourbon? Yeah. Very quotable.
It's an extraordinary film. It is very disturbing. But it has a really interesting plot. And the rewatchability factor, despite the fact that the film is fucked up and very disturbing, and there are characters in there's levels of depravity that are just like, holy shit. Oh, and the scene with Dean Stockwell, I still don't know what's going on. I think there's some drugs going on, and a candy-colored clown they call the Sandman, tiptoes, am I right?
Dean Stockwell is maybe the best part of that movie. That whole scene is amazing.
It is amazing. Here's to Ben.
Be polite!
Be polite! Do you want me to pour the beer? No, I want you to fuck it! Every Dennis Hopper line reading should go into the Movie Hall of Fame. Every single one.
Let's fuck! I'll fuck anything that moves!
No! Don't want to what? Don't want to go. Go where? For a ride. A ride! Hi, neighbor. All right, so, yeah, that's Blue Velvet. Mm-hmm. And it is a movie that most people who like movies will be able to get into, but some people they never spark to it. As I spoke on a previous podcast, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, one of their many very intense animated disagreements. They weren't screaming at each other, cursing each other out, but each guy was aggravated that the other didn't understand where they were coming from. Gene Siskel was shocked. He said this is one of the best movies of its kind since Psycho. That's 35 years after Psycho. And Gene Siskel, Blue Velvet hit the masterpiece button for Gene. And when Roger was basically saying this film is disgusting, disgraceful, it's a disaster, Gene was offended. His sensibilities were offended because you're basically telling me I don't know what I'm doing. And Roger had the exact same reaction. What the fuck, Gene? This movie doesn't play fair. It doesn't play fair with Isabella Rossellini's character. And then he goes into his shtick. And they could not have been 4 stars versus 1 star. Couldn't stand it. Ebert hated it. He never came around on that. It's the way it goes. But all right, so it's one of Jessica's favorites. Star Wars, Episode 4.
I feel like you took me to see it when it was re-released.
Yes,
at the
re-release in
Mall.
1997, so you would have been 13.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I had seen the film numerous times on VHS or HBO. I had never seen it on the big screen. And it was like seeing it for the first time, even though I knew what was going to happen. The whole movie, I was waiting for one of my top 5 favorite movie moments of all time. Luke is about to be blown out of the sky. Vader's got him in his sights. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the guy who only cares about money, doesn't give a shit about anyone except himself, and maybe Chewbacca, Han Solo comes out of nowhere to save the day. The classic hero's journey. The guy who doesn't want to be a hero. This is not my fight. I just want the money. Screw you. And it turns out he's playing poker the whole time. He's conning everybody into thinking he's a soulless mercenary, when clearly he is not a soulless mercenary. He just plays one on TV, as they say. So, but you had seen the movie.
I think I had seen it before, and I have memories from early childhood of seeing the one with the Wookiees, the Ewoks.
Oh, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. I remember having seen that.
But you had more of experience with Return of the Jedi than, okay, I mean, that's, sometimes, as I say, when you're a Generation Xer or an elder millennial, it's just a matter of what happened to be on TV.
Yeah.
We didn't have the same kind of choices. There was pay-per-view that was groundbreaking when pay-per-view came out in 1985, 86. But in general, is HBO showing Star Wars Episode 4 this month? No. Well, unless you have a VHS tape, you ain't seeing it that month. There's nothing, you can't do anything.
It's a different time.
Different time. Have you seen all 9 of the Star Wars? You have?
Yes.
Okay. So what I've talked about is I like every Star Wars film. If you ask me what's the worst Star Wars movie out of the 9, Attack of the Clones, episode 2.
Yeah.
Gorgeously shot.
Oh, yeah.
Yoda versus Christopher Lee lightsaber fight, hilarious, unbelievable. But man, I love Hayden Christensen. His line readings there aren't good, and Lucas's script or what he was trying to do, not good. It's 2.5 stars. It's okay. It's entertaining. I happen to think The Phantom Menace is way better. I prefer The Phantom Menace. That's my favorite of the 3 prequels. For many people, it was an unbelievable disappointment. What did we hear in 1999? George Lucas raped my childhood. And then what did we hear with episodes 7, 8, 9? This is disgusting. This isn't the Star Wars we love. You love Star Wars, but you hated the fact that Lucas tinkered with episodes 4, 5, and 6. You hated the prequels, and you hated episodes 7, 8, and 9. So what exactly is it that you love?
Their childhood. They want their childhood back.
Whatever that is,
yeah.
Yes. But yeah, there were a lot of Gen Xers that were really agitated with the prequels. I went in with moderate expectations. I wasn't expecting episode 1 to be like 4, 5, and 6. Really good. And getting Liam Neeson was a masterstroke. He's so good. And getting Obi-Wan Kenobi played by Ewan McGregor. When it was first on the boards, the idea was they were going to go for Kenneth Branagh, but then the time would have been different. It would have had to already have an older... And Branagh of the 90s could have done it. Absolutely could have done it. But they wanted the younger, like where he's a Padawan learner, and Kenneth Branagh and Liam Neeson aren't that far apart in age. It wouldn't work. In fact, I think if they went the Branagh route, there would have been no Qui-Gon. I think it would have just been him. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that was the first thought that was teased. It was going to be DiCaprio as Anakin, and it was going to be Kenneth Branagh as Obi-Wan. It could have worked. It's not the craziest notion, but I'm glad they went the route that they did because we got to see Liam Neeson be so good. And Ewan McGregor played a character that he was still playing 2 years ago. I thought the Obi-Wan series on Disney was terrific, and it doesn't look like they're going to do another season, unfortunately. But, okay, so overall, your top 3 out of the 9 Star Wars movies.
4 and 5. And 6.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. And I can flip the order between 4 and 5. I can say that as an exercise,
5, 6.
Yeah, as an exercise in narrative and being able to tell a story and have an audience, even of young people, not get lost with multiple lines of action. Empire Strikes Back is in itself a masterclass in how to do it because there are a lot of things going on at once, but the pacing is so good, you never lose track. Okay, Han is here. Luke is on Dagobah. Lando is over there, and now they're meeting, and Vader's over here. You don't lose track of anything. Nothing is confusing. It's just laid out so beautifully. And I love the first hour of Return of the Jedi until the fucking Ewoks show up. And it's not that the movie is then bad, but it's not as good. The narrative is so tight up until the moment the Ewoks show up. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 almost feels like one movie.
I heard that it was supposed to be a planet of Wookiees.
Yes, I did. I read that too. I'm glad they didn't do that either.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have worked.
I wonder if they would have all sounded like Chewbacca or if he was just, you know what I mean?
Oh, that would have been like a real nervy idea. No, he's the only one who sounds like that. Yeah. Everyone else, it's like Planet of the Apes. They all speak English.
Exactly.
Oh, wait, the missed opportunity.
That's too bad.
A missed opportunity. Okay, so the last one is my all-time favorite movie, Chariots of Fire, and I know Jessica is also a fan, but
anytime there are Jews being good at sports, I am a fan. So it's a story of a Jewish guy in Great Britain, and everybody is an asshole to him until they realize that he's worth something for their purposes.
Right, and it's so the story that I've told is that my parents basically dragged me to see this film pretty much kicking and screaming.
81? Was it 81?
Yeah, 81. So I was 7. I hadn't turned 8 yet. And they dragged me to this movie kicking and screaming. And not for the reasons that Jessica just mentioned. They had simply heard and seen ads on TV. And I think somebody that Dad worked with was raving about it, saying, Al, you have to see this. You won't believe how good this movie is. And I don't think he said, and there's a Jewish character in it too, or anything like that. I think he just said, you like sports, you watch the Olympics, and this is a true story. So we went to see it, and I had this early resistance. And then after about 10 minutes, I was just mesmerized. And I had what amounted to an out-of-body experience where I forgot I was in a movie theater watching a movie. It felt like I was with the characters. And it's something I feel can only happen when you're really young. I was 7. I don't think that's sort of weird where you almost feel like you're being transported. I don't think it happens, or at least it never happened to me again, just this one movie. One of the things I've always appreciated about the film is that, for example, the Harold Abrahams character, who was a real historical figure, they're all real historical figures. He's somebody who, we have members of our family, my sister and I, who are Jewish, but are not religious, but at the same time understand heritage and are proud of tradition. Now, we don't know that the way that the Harold Abrahams character is presented, whether or not he's proud of tradition, but he wears it on his sleeve like a badge of honor just the same. And we know people in our family who were very religious and people who weren't, but in most cases, they felt that it was necessary to uphold tradition. And in the case of this movie, Harold Abrahams knows just by his last name that everyone knows he's Jewish. And he kind of acts accordingly. And part of the reason why he is so motivated is to, as he puts it, run them off their feet. Basically say, here I am, beat me if you can. And that's part of, the magic of the movie. And then the opposing character, and this is something where if it weren't a true story, the narrative would not unfold this way, because the story seems to be setting up a confrontation at the Olympics between the two men who run for God, quote unquote, but in an entirely different way. The other main character, Eric Liddell, played by, unfortunately, the late Ian Charleson, who was only 39 when he passed, he runs for God, but he's a missionary, and he wants to convert everyone to Christianity, to his way. And he sees himself as a divine instrument. The other character might see himself to say, he wouldn't phrase it like that, but he certainly sees himself as running for God, but in a different way. And so here's a movie that seems to have religion all throughout. There are scenes set in churches, there are scenes where there are sermons, there's a lot of organ music, and yet it never preaches. It's never preaching, because I was the kind of kid, if I thought somebody was preaching, I would have just tuned out. The movie keeps you engaged, even as we are being exposed to different kinds of cultures, different thought processes, God and country. Well, what does that mean, God and country? God first, country second, country first, God second? I don't know. These are questions that people talk about and deal with now. What's the role of religion in government? Should we be a government on the laws of God or the laws of man? All of this. This movie, which is now 40-something years old, and it was set now 100 years ago, almost 100 years, the summer 1924 Olympics. It'll be the centennial anniversary later this year. The movie hits all of these different bases while telling an engaging, compelling story that doesn't go the way you think it's going to, because it's based on a true story. Spoiler alert, it seems to be moving towards a showdown between these two characters in the 100 meters. But history tells us, and the movie tells us a long way before it's over, that's not going to happen. The reason why it's not going to happen is because the character who is a missionary won't run on Sabbath. His faith, his belief in a higher power, in Beetlejuice, is to say, this day is his. This day belongs to Beetlejuice. And he refuses to run. And there are certain people, and this is the sort of thing you could see playing out now in a very similar fashion. There are certain people that will immediately have the back of the athlete, in this instance saying, hey, it's not my fault that they shouldn't have these heats on the Sabbath. That I of course I want to run. But there are people who would say, hey, he's a man of principle, good for him. And then there are people who would say, fuck that guy. Spoiled, elitist, brat. You know how it would play out. But in the world of the movie, even people who might be upset with him, they say, wait a minute, this guy stood on his head. He stood on principle. He actually stands for something greater than just an athletic contest. And that's something that you think about in terms of athletics. Is all there is winning a gold medal, winning a world championship, making a lot of money, or is there something more? And this movie argues that there is something more. And both guys, in their own way, try to achieve something more. And history tells us that they both did. And the movie shows us all of this, never talking down to the audience, keeping you engaged in a story where, I mean, sometimes the British accents, you think, how did I even understand what they were saying? Because some of the accents are pretty heavy. But to me, every scene works. And there's a lot of great music. Gilbert and Sullivan is all over this movie. How many great operettas? Here's a little trivia. 2 actors from this film, Ben Cross, who plays Harold Abrahams, one of the 2 leads, and Alice Krieger, who plays a character who becomes the wife of Harold Abrahams in this movie, they both starred on Star Trek. Alice Krieger is the Borg Queen in Star Trek First Contact. That's Jean-Luc Picard. That was the first movie with the Next Generation cast. And Ben Cross played Sarek, Spock's dad, in the reboot. And he was really good. I mean, it was perfect casting. He didn't look anything like the original actor Mark Lenard, but he was right on the button with the way that he intones his perfect accent and the way that he has a kind of bloodless manner of speaking, emotionless. It was amazing. Perfect casting. So, where would you rank Chariots in a top 10 or top 25 or?
For myself, for sure top 25. I don't know about top 10.
Okay.
But,
so she's a huge fan, but not on the level of me.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Our dad was a huge fan, and our aunt also is in her top 10 for sure. So, all right. Well, we made our way around the room.
We did talk about your favorite movies.
That's right. All right. We're going to close this segment, and then I'm going to ask Jessica to talk about her favorite movies. Okay. Good.